Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Adrian Furnham. I'm an academic, and academics write books. These are some of the books that I have written. I'm in fact working on my 94th book at this very moment. It's about selecting people in the workplace. But I'm not only an academic. I go into a place called the real world. And in the real world, I have real clients. These are some of my clients. I do training for them, I do reports, I do speeches, and so on and so forth. Today, I want to talk about a Chinese curse. And the curse is, may you live in interesting times. The idea is that interesting times are stressful times, difficult times, changing times. It'd be better to live in quieter times. And indeed, we are in a time of great change. One of the topics that many business people are very interested in is, of course, change and change management. And certainly, we're seeing a great deal of this at the moment. There is a lot of change about. And change hurts, change worries people, change frightens people because of uncertainty and resistance to that change. And it's worst of all when it's both unpredictable and uncontrollable, which of course it is at the moment. But the interesting issue is whether these times, these difficult times, are an opportunity for you and your organization or a threat. Is it better to focus on the half full glass or the half empty glass? To go back to the Chinese, they have a word for crisis which has two simplified pictures. The one symbolizes danger, which you would expect with crisis, and the other opportunity. So with every crisis, with every change situation, there is both danger and opportunity. I remember thinking back to 2008, to the last crisis we had, at least the business crisis and earlier crises, of my friends, my business friends. Some did very well out of it. It seemed half of them became much richer and half much poorer. And the question was why? I think you can look at this as an opportunity or as a threat. And we know that when times are hard, we have a sort of Darwinian survival of the fittest. The quickest, the boldest, the most agile do best. And those who are not ready for survival fail. These bad times really shows what motivates people: greed, kindness, helpfulness. And surely they test managers and leaders. They demand of all of us creative thinking, new thinking, and they accelerate the need for change in all sorts of ways. When I speak to groups, I say, I know how to sound young because I say the D words: disruption, diversity, distraction, digital. These are disruptive times, and we are, for many of us, seriously distracted. It's a lot easier to lead in good times. Poor leadership is covered up, profitability and growth seems to happen more easily, optimism pervades everybody, managers are tested in lean times, both the best and the worst of times. So what do people want from their manager? What do we want from our Prime Minister? What do we want from our politicians? What do we want from our boss in these bad times? Well, we want them to be steady and calm under fire. We want them to calm us down, but give us the right information. They want to be defiant about negativity, but vigilant. They want to see our leaders, we want to see our leaders in body and mind to be fit, to be able to take the slings and arrows of misfortune and help us through this problem. And more importantly, they want people who understands both the business and the people, both what to do and how people are reacting. When we have a crisis situation in business, what happens? Well, first of all, things stop. We don't do recruitment, we don't do training, we don't do it. It just stops. Also, things change. It seems that there are whole ideas about how things can be done differently. And also, and most importantly, often communication stops. We've all had the experience of going to the airport. And when we're at the airport and the flight's been delayed, you want to go up, you want to find what's going on. So there's a help desk or an information desk. And guess what? They've deserted the information desk because of the too much pressure put upon them. There can be nothing worse in a time of crisis that when you're trying to get information, you're trying to communicate with your colleagues and your manager, nobody communicates with you. Because people are worried. They're worried about redundancy and reduction in hours and wage freezes and first in, first out, or last in, first out. How's it going to all pan out for us? And what we find is that there are virtuous and vicious cycles. And the vicious cycle goes something like this. You're worried. You're not certain what to do, how to carry on working. And this leads to anxiety. And this anxiety leads to lower productivity, which leads to worsening results, which leads to management warning about changes, which could lead to more ambiguity. So we go into this terrible downward spiral. And that's a vicious cycle as opposed to a virtuous cycle. And we know about that as well. We know about what happens to individuals when they're in this response. It's a very classic response. It's called the shock response, where there's shock, depression, inertia, and adaptation. And you've often seen this particular cycle. So things have changed. What's happening? Why are we staying at home? Why is the share price going down? And this leads often to a surprise result, and then quite often rejection, grudging acceptance, etc. It's a U-curve hypothesis. It's a well-known reaction. It's a reaction to loss. It's exactly the same reaction we have in divorce or in immigration or in the death of somebody. You get this classic U-curve reaction where there's a shock, then people go down into a depression and then come out of it. And I think the task of management is to help people through the dark times, through the difficult times at the bottom of this spiral. What do you need to do? Well, quite simply, I think you need to re-engage with frequent, consistent, and honest communication. Webinars, Skype, Zoom, there's lots of ways in which you communicate with people. I've been involved in a number of these today where my leaders, people who are talking to me, are reassuring and clear. It's very helpful to have that. We also need people to lead from the front and not to hide behind others. We need strong and bold and adventurous leadership. And we need to learn from things that went wrong last time. We can innovate. We can innovate very well with the use of technology. This technology change is going to change everything. We know how well some companies are doing because of it. And we need to sharpen our focus. So I want to really end off with talking about two aspects which I think are relevant to all of us at the moment. And it's being a remote worker, working from home, as I am at the moment. You can see me in my study. Well, I think there are positive things about this, and we need to pay attention to what they are. First of all, you don't have to go into work. Work is not a place you go to, it's something you do. You don't have to dress up, there's no traffic. It's really rather delightful. Next, of course, you have great autonomy and flexibility about when, where, and how you work. I'm a morning person. I was at my computer this morning at 4:45. I'm at my best between 6 and 10. Chronobiologically, as they say, I am a lark. My wife, on the other hand, is an owl. And it's very pleasant to be able to work when it's best for me, where I like working, and how I like working. I have a tremendous amount of autonomy and flexibility, which of course relates very strongly to intrinsic motivation. There's also a better work-life balance for certain people. I can get a better talent pool. I can contact all sorts of people around the world. And it can be, and this is a debatable point, a distraction-free environment. So I can work in a way I like to work, where I like to work, and how I like to work. But there are distractions and negative factors. What about paying people the equipment and the bills and the breakdown? Paying for work equipment. What happens when your computer goes down? There are health and safety considerations. If I'm working from home and I fall down the stairs, what are the insurance implications of that? Who is to pay? This is quite a sensitive issue. Then there is, how can one install and maintain the corporate culture? I have a number of places where I work, and one has a very strong corporate culture, which is determined by where I work. And how can we, as remote workers, maintain this corporate culture? The one that concerns many managers is how to control and measure and monitor the home worker. Am I really working sitting here at home, or am I doing other things? Am I skiving off? I'll talk about that in just one moment. There might be fewer learning opportunities. Observation, coaching, training is not so easy working from home. There are potentially communication problems with the head office. And there is this idea of feeling excluded, poor promotion, out of mind. You're at the end of a line, you're a forgotten person. But of course, that is relevant only if lots of people are going to the office and there are few working at home, whereas everybody is working at home. And of course, there is the issue of family and friends not respecting your work time and space, that they interrupt you at various times. And then there is effective communication. I'm doing a talk tomorrow on the difference between face-to-face communication, live and electronic. It's an interesting issue. You can just see me, you can just see the torso me. I am what they call a talking head or a newspaper reader. Can you judge my emotions? Can you see what's happening with my hands and feet? And to what extent does that affect your understanding of my emotional state? It's a subtle issue. But let me end off with some advice for people working at home in these difficult times. I think with most of us at work, we tend to develop a routine and a ritual. We have work times. We like to work from a particular, even when you have flexi time, you notice that some people prefer to come in early and go late and vice versa. I think you need to establish a little ritual. It doesn't take long, and how you work. Importantly, you need to let others know this. It's a good idea to take breaks, quite regular breaks, and they might be breaks which are physical. Go make yourself a cup of tea, do a bit of washing up, do a bit of gardening. Of course, exercise is good. Exercise needs to be gentle and challenging. And there's an issue about being obsessed with email use. I try and limit myself to a certain number of times an hour I use emails. I also say to people, I'm not going to respond more than 5 times to an email in one day. I need to tell my family when I'm disturbable and when I'm not disturbable. So here's the game. We are living in interesting times. There are things we cannot control and there are things we can control. I think it's important to look after the things we can control. How we work at home, how we adjust, how we learn the new technology to contact people. I think we need to see this as an unusual opportunity. It is a time of worry. It's a time of economic worry for many people. On the other hand, life's never going to be the same again. Things are going to change dramatically. And this provides for many people a fantastic opportunity. People have got hold of me in a very manic sort of way because they know it's an exciting time. It is an exciting time and it is a worrying time. It is a time to take into consideration those of our friends and colleagues who worry more than others and to look after them. It's a great source of support for ourselves to give support for others. So in this brief video, I want to say not only the Chinese curse, may we live in interesting times, but also may we thrive in interesting times. And I wish you all the best of luck and success in this time of crisis.